taken in thy shelter, oh my God, and it becometh him that seeketh that shelter to abide within the sanctuary of thy protection and the stronghold of thy defense. Illumine my inner being, oh my Lord, with the splendors of the day spring of thy revelation, even as thou didst illumine my outer being with the morning light of thy favor. I wanted to keep singing, but I got a frog in my throat suddenly. Good morning, Vicki. Good morning, Andy. And Nini, babe, I forgot my book. Could you please hand me my book from the closet? Morning, everyone. How are you doing? Hello, everyone out there in Facebook land. As you can see, I'm center camera. So that means one thing. Daryl isn't joining us today. He's kind of under the weather. And let me grab a little bit of water here. We are not sponsored by Core. I just want to make that clear. But I hope everyone is doing well this morning. Let's start, as always, with a prayer. Hello, everyone out there in Facebook land. It's still there. Excuse me. I was fine until we started singing. Don't know what happened. Here's a prayer for steadfastness by Baha'u'llah. Glorified be thy name, O Lord my God. I beseech thee by thy power that hath encompassed all created things, and by thy sovereignty that hath transcended the entire creation, and by thy word which was hidden in thy wisdom, and whereby thou didst create thy heaven and thy earth, both to enable us to be steadfast in our love for thee and in our obedience to thy pleasure, and to fix our gaze upon thy face and celebrate thy glory. Empower us then, O my God, to spread abroad thy signs among thy creatures, and to guard thy faith in thy realm. Thou hast ever existed independently of the mention of any of thy creatures, and wilt remain as thou hast been forever and ever. In thee I have placed my whole confidence unto thee. In thee I have placed my whole confidence. Unto thee have I turned my face. To the cord of thy loving providence I have clung, and towards the shadow of thy mercy I have hastened. Cast me not as one disappointed out of thy door, O my God, and withhold not from me thy grace, for thee alone do I seek. No God is there beside thee, the ever-forgiving, the most bountiful. Praise be to thee, O thou, who art the beloved of them that have known thee. And this again is a prayer by Baha'u'llah, and I'm sure I've read this prayer before, but I just noticed something really special in here. I just love that line, for thee alone do I seek. In fact, that whole paragraph, in thee I have placed my whole confidence, unto thee have I, and I'm going to say that again. In thee I have placed my whole confidence. Unto thee I have turned my face. To the cord of thy loving providence I have clung, and towards the shadow of thy mercy I have hastened. Cast me not as one disappointed out of thy door, O my God, and withhold not from me thy grace. For thee alone do I seek. No God is there but thee, the ever-forgiving, the most bountiful. Praise be to thee, O thou who art the beloved of them that have known thee. And again, this is a prayer by Baha'u'llah. I love that. I want to go back to that later. Well, good morning, Hushang. We're glad that you could join us. As you know, we have been working with the book Towards Oneness. We're coming to the end, probably about 3 or 4 more weeks in this book, given, of course, depending on how many pages we are covering. And I think it's important that I tell you that, of course, when we finish with this book, we're going to be starting a new book. And we had given some thought. There were several books we had considered. One of the books we considered was actually a companion book to this book, Toward Oneness. And I actually meant to have that here with me. Don't worry about it. But it continues basically the theme of this book, dealing with racism, dealing with prejudice. And it has in it writings that came from the Universal House of Justice later than this book was published. And frankly, a lot has been said. That the companion book to this is actually longer. It's thicker than this one. And so I want to encourage anyone that's interested in continuing our study on this to purchase that book. Maybe I'll jump up and get it. It's over there, but I don't know exactly where it is. So, but anyway, it looks something like this, Nini, but it's blue instead of. And there it is, right there. Thank you. She's so efficient. And so this is the companion book, Toward Oneness. It's called Toward Oneness and Freedom from Racial Prejudice. And after giving it a lot of thought, while we wanted to continue the theme, we decided we'd kind of switch focus, but I still want to, again, just mention that book. Andy is the one who suggested it. I think it's a great suggestion, but we are still going to switch focus to a different book for particular reasons that I won't cover right now. But I do want to let you know what our next book will be. And then we'll get started with today's study. Our next book, and this will give you time to get it if you want to have your own copy of it, has actually been around for a long time. There have been multiple editions and reprintings of this book. But it's an excellent book for a closer look at the Baha'i faith, for anyone who's wondering why are all these people, joining the Baha'i faith. And it's called Baha'u'llah and the New Era. It is by an author, J.E. Esselmont, Baha'u'llah and the New Era. And it's just an excellent book. It touches on some of the things that we've been covering, but it also gives you excuse me again, a much deeper look into what is the Baha'i faith about. And for those of us who choose to join the Baha'i faith and follow it from all other world religions and so forth, and people who, even former atheists, often find value in the Baha'i faith. I know several who were atheists until they read more about the faith, and like me, even though I wasn't an atheist, got pulled in kicking and screaming, knowing that this was the right way for us to go. But again, it's called Baha'u'llah and the New Era, an introduction to the Baha'i faith. And I do want to tell you, you can get that from Baha'i Publishing. I think you could probably get it on Amazon as well. It might be a little more expensive, I'm not sure. But again, Baha'u'llah and the New Era, an introduction to the Baha'i faith. Let me go ahead and put that aside now. Nini's giving me a look. She's giving me a look like, are we ready to? Are we going to get started now? So yes, we are. Today is September 3rd. I've marked my book. Now, if you recall, if you were with us last week, the question we were dealing with at that time was, let me get the right page here, will it help to solve racial prejudice? Let me rephrase it. Will it help to solve racial prejudice to teach more African Americans? Will it help to solve racial prejudice to teach more African Americans? And we're, of course, talking about teaching them the Baha'i faith. And we had read a couple of answers. One thing that jumps out here that our friend Pam actually, I think, responded to, and I'm going to mention something that she sent me after we had finished our program last week. But just a quick little paragraph from the response to that question. It is time that the Baha'is stop worrying entirely about the white element in a community, and that they should concentrate on showing the Negro element that this is a faith which produces full equality and which loves and wants minorities. And something that was important that our friend Pam in St. Petersburg sent me afterwards is that we need to point out that even the idea of race, while we're using those terms, doesn't really apply. We use the terms that that people kind of think in and understand, but we don't want to lose sight of the fact that as Baha'is, we're told that there is only one race. And if we wanted to get away from Baha'i faith and just say anthropologists, we're told there's only one race, and yet we've created these artificial divisions that have caused so much trouble. So again, thank you for that, Pam. So to continue with today's readings, again to that question, will it help solve racial prejudice to teach more African Americans? Here's our next answer coming from Shoghi Effendi.
Tony, can you tell us what page we're on?
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, I can. In this edition, we're on page 46. We're on page 46, and we're on passage number 118. We probably should have been naming the passage numbers too, but page 46, and for anyone who has the older edition, it's still passage 118. Those numbers don't change. So, Shoghi Effendi stressed that the obstacles that were preventing blacks from becoming Baha'is in greater numbers must be removed, not for the sake of the colored group, as black people in America were previously called, not for the sake of the colored group, but for the sake of the whole well-being and harmony and safety of the world, and for the sake of establishing the kingdom of God on earth. Race prejudice was America's vital problem, but it was not simply a matter of national concern. Shoghi Effendi says that the tranquility of all the peoples of the earth depends on this one thing, the coming together of the white and the black. Let me reread that. Shoghi Effendi says that the tranquility of all the peoples of the earth depends on this one thing, the coming together of the white and the black. He goes on to say, or at least this passage goes on to say, the Baha'is must play a pivotal role in the solution of this problem, he told her. In order to begin to assume this role, the Negro must be represented, that he might express his viewpoint, that you might understand his position, that we might reach across the chasm. I'll read that again. In order to begin to assume this, the Baha'is must play a pivotal role in the solution of this problem. In order to begin to assume this role, the Negro must be represented, that he might express his viewpoint, that you might understand his position, and that we might reach across the chasm. Therefore, and this is important, especially in Baha'i communities, therefore, every Baha'i committee should have at least one black member, he emphasized. Even, I'll tell you why I'm laughing in a moment. Therefore, every Baha'i committee should have at least one black member, he emphasized, even if the same individual had to be appointed over and over again. Above all, every effort should be made to open the door for large numbers of black people to enter the cause. So to those African Americans and other black people around the world who may not be in a predominantly black community, and especially again to the Baha'is, and you find that you are constantly being chosen to serve on committee after committee and on LSAs and so forth. Certainly it is for love of the faith, and I'm sure for love of you, but it's also a mandate. It's guidance from Shoghi Effendi, where if you expect to understand, shall we say, the plight of people of color, you need to include them. You need to listen to them. They have to have a voice at the table. To continue, this is the next passage. She, Dorothy Baker, shared with the audience of over 2,000 Baha'is a theme that Shoghi Effendi had reiterated during her recent pilgrimage. Baha'is who are able go on pilgrimage to the Holy Land. So Dorothy Baker says, he said one driving thing over and over, that if we did not meet the challenging requirement of raising to a vast number the believers of the Negro race, disasters would result. And second, she continued, that it was now for us to arise and reach not just the black people, but the Indians of this country. Yes, the Native Americans. It was now for us to arise and reach the Native Americans, or as here, Indians of this country. In fact, he went so far as to say on 2 occasions that this dual task is the most important teaching work on American shores today, bringing people of color, especially blacks and Native Americans, to the faith. And I'm going to go back and reread a paragraph we read earlier so people can, again, have context. Why in the world is that so important? Shoghi Effendi says that the tranquility of all the peoples of the earth depends on this one thing, the coming together of the white and the black. In order to assume this role, the Negro must be represented, and as we now know, also the Native Americans must be represented, that he might express his viewpoint, that you might understand his position, that we might reach across the chasm, that chasm between blacks and whites. The problem of achieving racial unity, both Shoghi Effendi and Abdu'l-Baha had always intimated, was not simply national in scope. As Dorothy Baker reported it, it was clearly related to a general shift in the balance of power from the old colonial regimes to their former subjects. So we're talking about, let's face it, centuries of history we're trying to overturn the negative effects of centuries of history. This is one of the things that makes this task such a challenge. To continue, now the dark-skinned people, he being Shoghi Effendi, now the dark-skinned people, he said, would have an upsurge that is both spiritual and social. The spiritual upsurge will rapidly bring them great gifts because this is an act of God. And it is so intended. And all the world's prejudiced forces will not hold it back one hair's breadth. I think we're hearing the tough Shoghi Effendi here. And all the world's prejudiced forces will not hold it back one hair's breadth. The Baha'is will glorify it and understand it. The social repercussions of race suppressions around the world, and this is the dark side of all of this. The social repercussions of the race suppressions around the world will increase at the same time. And frightened, the world's forces will see that the dark-skinned people are really rising to the top, a cream that has latent gifts only to be brought out by divine bounties. So as we're often told in Baha'i circles, this is part of that, there's that side of things that is the construction, the generation of things, but then on the other side, there's the destruction. And there's often pushback to this change that's coming about. And that's what, those are my words, that's what Shoghi Effendi is referring to. I'm going to read that again. All the world's prejudiced forces will not hold it back one hair's breadth, that spiritual upsurge. The Baha'is will glorify it and understand it. The social repercussions of race suppressions around the world will increase at the same time, and frightened, the world's forces will see that the dark-skinned peoples are really rising to the top, a cream that has latent gifts only to be brought out by divine bounties. So this question actually is a part of this next question that is not one of the major questions, it's a part of this response. Where do the Baha'is stand in this? Where do the Baha'is stand in this? Again and again, he pointed out that the Baha'is must be in the vanguard of finding these people of color. The Baha'is must be in the vanguard of finding them and giving them the faith, for the social repercussions will at times become dreadful if we do not, and we shall be judged by God. So if you're not helping in this effort in your own little way, you need to get up and you need to start assisting. Teach the faith, teach the faith, teach the faith. To continue, I thought, and this is apparently, we're quoting, I have not, I mentioned the name Dorothy Baker, and I don't know, I'm hoping maybe Andy or Hushang, someone knows exactly who Dorothy Baker is. I should have done my homework on that. I kept seeing the name. But I believe these quotes are actually a reference to her in these questions. I thought that I was rather a fanatic on the race question, at least a strong liberal. But I sat there, judged by my guardian, and I knew it. It sounds like the thoughts of a person who was saying, I thought I was already doing my part, but maybe I'm not doing enough. So I'm going to read that again. I thought that I was rather a fanatic on the race question, at least a strong liberal. But I sat there, judged by my guardian, and I knew it. My sights were lifted immeasurably. God forbid that even in this coming year we fail in this. And the first solution is offered us by the guardian. He wishes the appointment of two important national committees immediately. You have to remember this was back in the mid-1900s. He wishes the appointment of two important national committees immediately. One is to reach the Negro minority of America with this great truth in vast numbers. Not just little publicity stunts either, but to make them believers. It worked on me, I'll say that, but anyway. The second committee is to teach the Indian tribes of this continent. And some of us, to draw out further light on the subject, even questioned a great deal about the kind of psychology that might ensue if you had a committee just to reach the Negroes. But he being Shoghi Effendi again, he rather scoffed at it in a precious twinkling kind of way and firmly reiterated that without special attention, we simply had not done it. In other words, unless we create committees with this job, the reason for committing this committee is because you haven't done it yet. He rather scoffed at it in a precious twinkling kind of way and firmly reiterated that without special attention, we simply had not done it, and that the important thing is to do it. The important thing is to do it. And this problem, once again, is still with us. We all know that. And we have to keep working at it. We have to keep working at it. Next question. Shouldn't we prioritize teaching over addressing issues of racial amity? Shouldn't we prioritize teaching over addressing issues of racial amity? Here's your response. Concerning the racial amity conferences, the Guardian firmly believes that they constitute a vital and inseparable part of the teaching campaign now being carried out by the American believers. It is the duty of every loyal Baha'i to do all that he possibly can to promote this phase of Baha'i activity, without which no campaign of teaching can bear lasting results. It's not an either or. Addressing these issues has to be part of your teaching efforts. Okay? It is the duty of every loyal Baha'i to do all that he possibly can do to promote this phase of Baha'i activity, without which no campaign of teaching can bear lasting results. We're going to move on to the next question here, and the answer, the first response to it, is huge because I think that it illustrates from the very roots of this faith the fact that the importance of unity and the coming together of people is a part of this revelation. So the question is, what is the role of race amity conferences in resolving prejudice? What is the role of race amity conferences in resolving prejudice? This first response is actually coming from the writings of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. Excuse me. They that are endued with sincerity and faithfulness should associate with all the peoples and kindreds of the earth with joy and radiance, inasmuch as consorting with people hath promoted and will continue to promote unity and concord, which in turn are conducive to the maintenance of order in the world and to the regeneration of nations. Blessed are such as hold fast to the cord of kindliness and tender mercy and are free from animosity and hatred. And, I actually meant to underline a couple of things here, so give me a moment, because there's a couple of things that I think we need to pay some close attention to. Okay, he says, they that are endued with sincerity and faithfulness should associate with all peoples and kindreds of the earth with joy and radiance. Now, if we stop there, it sounds pretty personal. And if you're already doing those types of things, well, then wonderful. I mean, that's wonderful. I'm sure your life is enriched and the people that you associate with are enriched. But let's look beyond ourselves and see the bigger picture, as Baha'u'llah points out. They that are endued with sincerity and faithfulness should associate with all peoples and kindreds of the earth with joy and radiance, inasmuch as consorting with people hath promoted and will continue to promote unity and concord. Yes, we need our committees. We need, our larger organizations whose jobs it is to promote unity and concord. But Baha'u'llah tells us, consorting with people hath promoted and will continue to promote unity and concord. We have to be practicing it in our own personal life. And then he refers to the bigger picture. Inasmuch as consorting with people hath promoted and will continue to promote unity and concord, which in turn which in turn are conducive to the maintenance of order in the world. To the maintenance of order in the world and to the regeneration of nations. So in our own private lives, when we are trying to be inclusive of, diverse people from diverse backgrounds, it's not just about us, and it doesn't just affect us. In the bigger picture, it affects the world order, okay, and the regeneration of nations. And then Baha'u'llah says, blessed are such as hold fast to the cord of kindliness and tender mercy and are free from animosity and hatred. I love that. You're blessed if you're free from animosity and hatred. I'm getting a direction here. Okay. Is that better? Okay. Continuing, again, the question is, what is the role of race amity conferences in resolving prejudice? Here's our next response coming from Shoghi Effendi on behalf of Shoghi Effendi. Concerning the racial amity conferences, the Guardian firmly believes that they constitute a vital and inseparable part of the teaching campaign now being carried out by the American believers. It is the duty of every loyal Baha'i to do all that he can possibly all that he possibly can to promote this phase of Baha'i activity, without which no campaign of teaching can bear lasting results. I think we already read that. Yeah, okay, but it's part of it's just a repeat to a previous question. So, yeah. Okay. Now we're speaking to why this is important. The importance of this racial amity work cannot be overestimated by the American believers. And if I may say, this was written long ago, as we know. Now we've had plenty of time to see why it was important. The importance of this racial amity work cannot be overestimated by the American believers. In February 1921, Mr. Mountford Mills took the following notes from words of Abdu'l-Baha on the subject of the Amity Convention in Washington, D.C. These are the notes he took based on the words of Abdu'l-Baha. Unless this problem were solved before long, there would break out a terrible conflict in the United States between these two races that would be devastating in its effect. You got to remember, this is 1921 when this was said. That would be devastating in its effect. Say to this convention that never since the beginning of time has one more important been held. Say to this convention that never since the beginning of time has one more important been held. This convention stands for the oneness of humanity. It will become the cause of removal of hostility between races. It will be the cause of the enlightenment of America. It will, if wisely managed and continued, check the deadly struggle between these races, which otherwise will inevitably break out. And as we know, there have been fits and starts. Sometimes it seems like we are going, one step forward, two steps back, but there's still that continuing forward progression. Let's see, it's 10:33. I think I'd better stop and take a little moment out for some music. But first, a drink. We're trying something a little different today. And this song comes from Baha'u'llah. These are the words of Baha'u'llah. In Gleanings, Baha'u'llah writes, say, my army is my reliance on God. My people, the force of my confidence in Him. My love is my standard. And my companion, the remembrance of God, the sovereign Lord of all, the most powerful, the all-glorious, the unconditioned. He goes on to say, let thy soul glow with the flame of this undying fire that burneth in the midmost heart of the world, in such wise that the waters of the universe shall be powerless to cool down its ardor. Make then mention of thy Lord. 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 Make then mention of thy Lord, that haply the heedless among our servants may be admonished through thy words, and the hearts of the righteous be gladdened. Make then mention of thy Lord. Make then mention of thy Lord. Make then mention of thy Lord. Make then mention. Make then mention. you, Nini.
You're welcome.
Make then mention of thy Lord. Well, let's see, it's 10:37. Do we have time to read any? I think I'll read one more. Let's see. Yes, because, hang on. I lost my page. 9:23. No, I didn't lose my page. I'm free from animosity and hatred. Okay, yeah. It is important that we continue this next question. I just want to get started on this. We won't have time to finish this next question. But the answers to this next question are so important. I want to just touch on this. As an individual, we've talked about, again, having people in your life from different backgrounds and so forth, and the effect it can have on the state of the world. Well, our next question is, as an individual, how much emphasis should I put on examining my own prejudices? As an individual, how much emphasis should I put on examining my own prejudices? Well, here's Shoghi Effendi's response. Let every believer, and when he says believers, he's of course talking to Baha'is, but I think everyone. Let every believer desirous to witness the swift and healthy progress of the cause of God realize the twofold nature of his task. Let him first turn his eyes inwardly and search his own heart and satisfy himself that his relations with his fellow believers, irrespective of color and class, or I should say that in his relations with his fellow believers, irrespective of color and class, he is proving himself increasingly loyal to the spirit of his beloved faith, the spirit of unity. Assured and content that he is exerting his utmost in a conscious effort to approach nearer every day the lofty station to which his gracious master summons him, let him turn to his second task, and with befitting confidence and vigor, assail the devastating power of those forces which in his own heart he has already succeeded in subduing. Those negative forces of prejudice and hatred and separatism. Those are my words, my add-ons. Fully alive to the unfailing efficacy of the power of Baha'u'llah and armed with the essential weapons of wise restraint and inflexible resolve, let him wage a constant fight against the inherited tendencies, the corruptive instincts, the fluctuating fashions, the false pretenses of the society in which he lives and moves. We're all subjected to all of these negative forces within ourselves and outside of ourselves. So I'm going to read that again, not the whole passage, but this is all saying you need to look at yourself first. Turn your eyes inwardly, fully alive to the unfailing efficacy of the power of Baha'u'llah, and armed with the essential weapons of wise restraint and inflexible resolve, let him wage a constant fight against the inherited tendencies. Some of these you got in you, you can't help it, you can do something about it, but it's there. You picked it up from the culture or the people around you. Inherited tendencies, the corruptive instincts, that animalistic side of ourselves, the corruptive instincts, the fluctuating fashions, the false pretenses of the society in which he lives and moves. There's constant work to be done within ourselves, and we need to do that work. And finally, Shoghi Effendi says, do not for a moment hesitate or slacken in your efforts for such a glorious cause, and encourage the friends, Baha'is are referred to as the friends, and encourage the friends to exemplify the harmony and goodwill that should characterize the relations of races to one another before attempting to summon the multitude to its urgent call. So yes, we teach outwardly, but we also have to work inwardly. Let them search their own hearts, purge their own minds before attempting the regeneration of mankind. I think we'll go ahead and use that as our stopping point for today. And as you know, at this time, we always like to allow for anyone else who would like to offer up a prayer or reading or song of your choice. This is that time. And Andy is with us. Hi, Andy. How are you? And I don't think I said hello to Gilbert. Good morning, Gilbert. But Andy, as always, we like to start with our Andy Murphy moment. And folks, please do keep Cambys in your prayers. Please, please, please. And Andy, do you have something you'd like to share with us today?
Yes. In answer to your question, how I am, I'm recovering from COVID. And so I am going to share with you an instrumental number.
But I appreciate the fact that you say you're recovering. That's good.
Yes.
Andy's going to share an instrumental.
Can you hear that?
Yes. And for anyone who doesn't, any Baha'i out there listening to them, allow and it is frequently sung in Baha'i circles around the world. Now, Andy, that particular song is of Persian origin. Am I wrong about that?
You are not at all mistaken. It is exactly that. It was originally a song from a Persian film to which a set of Baha'i lyrics had been added.
Oh, I did not know that. You just educated me. Thanks. Is there anyone else? Thank you, Andy, so much. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to share a prayer or reading at this time? Anyone at all? Okay. Doing a little technical thing over there. I hope it's fixed. Anyone who'd like to share a prayer or passage of your choosing? Well, then I'd like to spend a little time, again, really asking for your prayers for Cambys, who, as you know, hasn't been able to join us for weeks, and pray for his wife, strengthen of his wife, Farah. Wow, Farah, who drew a blank there, but who often, when Cambys was able to join us, would often join us and occasionally read prayer. She's got this beautiful speaking voice that I love hearing her read prayers. And at this time, it's also important that we point out, as always, that this is a community effort coming to you from, it's a joint effort by a variety of people from different Baha'i communities. But we are coming to you through the kindness of the Clearwater community, who is streaming us through their website if you are joining us through Zoom, or if you choose to go and look at this program later on their website, where they always post it as well. I do share it on my Facebook page for anyone else who would like to, who sees it. I know that some people access it that way as well. And for anyone who is interested in learning more about the Baha'i faith, as we always point out, there are some definitive websites that you can go to. And those websites are www.baha'i.org, www.baha'i.us, www.baha'iteachings.org, and you can always go to the Clearwater website, www.clearwaterbaha'is.org. And again, as I pointed out last week, if you want to know if there are Baha'is in your area, here in the U.S. In particular, you can go to www.baha'i.us, and they can actually put you in contact with Baha'is in your area, where you can learn more about this wonderful faith. And as I said earlier, and I'll admit I'm filling in just a little bit here, but I want to remind anyone who may have joined us after we started that as you know, we are coming to the close of our book. We've probably got about 3-4 weeks left. I think that's probably the max, and we'll be finished. We'll be finished. And there is another book that is a companion book of this. We had considered continuing this study and going on to the companion book, okay? But we decided otherwise. But for anyone who is interested in getting that companion book and continuing more study on how to, help overcome this problem of racial prejudice here in the U.S. and around the world, there is this companion book called Toward Oneness and Freedom from Racial Prejudice. You can get that from Palabra Publications, and very possibly even, I want to say possibly Baha'i Publishing, Baha'i Publishing Trust. I'm not sure about that, but you can definitely get it from Palabra. And yeah, I'll just leave that there. I want to say, and possibly even on Amazon. I think you can get it on Amazon too, but it's a little pricey. So if we're not going to go with this book next, well then what's our next book going to be? I'm so happy you asked, because this is our next book. And the reason I'm telling you so early is, again, for those of you who may want to actually purchase the book, we're not selling them, but if you want to, again, purchase your own copy of the book is Baha'u'llah and the New Era. Baha'u'llah and the New Era. And you can get that as well from Baha'i. You certainly can get it from Baha'i Publishing. Baha'i Publishing, that's the only one I see up front. I wanted to say Palabra as well. You might be able to get it there, but you can definitely get it from Baha'i Publishing. And very possibly on Amazon too. I don't recall if it's on Amazon. But this will be our next book. And for anyone who wonders why this book, it is because it is an amazing, absolutely amazing, in-depth look at the Baha'i faith. And you don't have to be a Baha'i to find this interesting. I want to make that clear. Many people, I've been told, have read this book because while it has had multiple reprintings, the original version of it was, it was in the early 1900s. I thought I would see it here, but it was in the early 1900s. This copy that I have is from 2006. 1937, there we go, 1937. But it's a great book. to get an in-depth look at the Baha'i faith and learn about Baha'i precepts, Baha'i practices, Baha'i teachings. And if you are simply a friend of the faith or someone who's curious and likes to study world religions and so forth, this is a phenomenal book. It really is. And so, yeah, that'll be our next book. And with that being said, as always, we always like to remind you to, as Daryl would always say, no matter what you do while you're out there living your life in the world, always, share love, share the love, show some kindness. It's like I've seen several times lately. Some of you have probably seen it on, I don't know, bumper stickers or mugs or whatever. If you can be anything, be kind. Okay? And that being said, I almost don't want to do our regular closing because Daryl's not here. And if I do it, I do need to cue up our. So you'll just miss Daryl's instrument. O people of justice, be as brilliant as the light, and as splendid as the fire that blazed in the burning bush. The brightness of the fire of your love will no doubt fuse and unify the contending peoples and kindreds of the earth, whilst the fierceness of the flame of enmity and hatred cannot but result in strife and ruin. We beseech God that he may shield his creatures from the evil designs of his enemies. He verily hath power over all things. Let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Watch over yourselves, for the evil one is lying in wait, ready to entrap you. Gird yourselves against his wicked devices, and led by the light of the name of the all-seeing God, make your escape from the darkness that surroundeth you. Let your vision be world embracing, rather than confined to your own self. These are the words of Baha'u'llah. Be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Let your vision be world embracing. Oh, oh. Have a good week, folks. Take care, and we hope we see you back here next week. And if we don't see you next week, maybe you'll watch this program at some other time, when it's convenient for you.